to the cloud. All right, thank you everybody for coming to this public workshop. It's not a town council workshop, but it is a public workshop, and we like to do these to make sure that we provide input as far as the status of some of the projects, as well as to gain additional input from those that are directly impacted and those that are indirectly impacted by various projects that we're working on. So we do this, I would say, at least once a week with the amount of projects that we currently have. This one is specific to the ward trail design and the landscaping components of phase one. And phase one, as Mike will show, is from North Drive all the way up to Park Avenue. We've been working on this for quite some time. I believe that we initially did the multimodal study in 2014. So this is 7 years in the making. And then this is just one component of an overall project. We're trying to connect both, local government, the residents, commercial aspects, and recreational aspects that's more pedestrian friendly, and also with golf carts as well. It's dinner time in my house. You may hear some kicking and screaming in the background, like I just heard. But anyway, again, this is our phase one. And tonight is to get your input on some specific design issues and criteria that we can take forward. We did receive monies from the federal government through the Safe Routes to School program, about $760,000. This phase one is about close to, I think, what, $1 million, Mike?
Yeah, pretty close. And we will revise the estimates once we wrap up once we get to the end of the design stages, but right around $1 million. So the money coming in will cover the vast majority of it, but not all of it.
And includes the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we put away $130,000 since, I think, 2018 for not only design, but also for the capital improvements for this project. So we'll be able to cover that in-house with that 760. So this is pretty much on the top of the burner as it can be. We do have our Public Works Director, Tony Elliott Moore, on. We have our Town Clerk on, Dorothy Burkhalter, and of course, Mike Woodward from Killinghorn Associates. And we also have Molly Rose, council member, on as well. So with that said, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mike Woodward, who will present, and it'll be up to him whether or not he wants to take questions during the presentation or wait till after. But I'll see you, Mike.
Yeah, sure. So with a group this small, I'll be happy to take questions during the presentation. And if you happen to have something that we're about to cover, I'll just let you know and treat it that way. But I already got started a little bit with the presentation because Robert was kind of talking through some of the key points. But yeah, this first phase is from North Drive up to Park Avenue. And so North Drive is it's kind of the first street north of First Street. And then the future phases, after we move forward with this, I think the next step would be to connect this northern section to downtown. And then the phase 3 and phase 4, which one goes first kind of depends on a number of other issues, but those are certainly out in the future. So the overall process, yeah, we started planning the actual concept of this, not just the idea, but the concept, and thinking through some of the design elements back around year 2020. We ultimately selected the type of bridge in January of 2021, and then proceeded with the trail design. So we had already talked about the 60% plans. We're bringing those back now with a couple revisions to them and focusing on the landscaping components. After this, we'll finalize the design and then move into construction. As Robert mentioned, there is funding to move forward with this improvement. So the typical section, for the most part, we're going to stay along the berm, the old railroad berm that's in that section between Old Dirt Main and Main Street. In the typical section, we would generally want the path to be along the middle of it, but we have meandered the pathway to avoid tree impacts. The type of bridge over the canal is going to be, it's called a bowstring. That's just the name of this model, this sort of truss-shaped design. We'll have it painted black, 8 feet tall, 14 feet wide, and that width is going to be wider than the rest of the path. The majority of the path is going to be 10 feet wide, but we wanted it to be wider over the canal so that we could allow golf carts to travel for that portion. Now, once the golf carts get past the bridge, they will proceed onto the regular town roads and will not be allowed on the rest of the pathway. And so we'll do that by having a ramp to the adjacent streets and then bollards along the pathway itself to prevent golf carts from continuing on the path. We did, the town hired an independent arborist and we went over the report. There were recommendations in that report for root protection on specific trees. Some of the times there was recommendations for pruning, other times recommendations for other root protection, things like porous pavement or even a gravel base underneath the trail. There were some additional recommendations for other trees to be removed that we will accommodate in the plan sheets for either a tree that had a poor structure or poor conditions or was an invasive species. During the 60% review, there were some comments to relocate the golf cart connection up to Lake Butler Boulevard in order to avoid impacting a longleaf pine tree that's there. It's a really nice tree. So we did go out and modify that location. So since then, that's in addition to that, avoiding that longleaf pine, we also included some additional meandering and other root protection measures to avoid additional root impacts. So we started out trying to avoid them. We went back after the arborist report and tried even harder to avoid impacting trees whenever possible. So now let's get into the main point for today. I want to talk about different planting options. And once we get some feedback and direction from the town, that will influence what goes into the plan sheets. But some things we want to consider are the tree type, the density, as well as the shrub type and density. And as you're looking through these options, just let us know what you do like and what you don't like. And if you could just be specific with those things, then we could take those thoughts into our design. So this example location that we're going to have all of the sketches start with a view from Lake Butler Boulevard. This is north of the canal. There's some thick trees in the area immediately north of the canal, and then eventually it thins out and it clears out really. And that berm becomes much less pronounced than it is immediately north of the canal. So that's where we're starting from. The road with the cars on it, that's Main Street. The road that you can see in the bottom left corner, that's Lake Butler Boulevard. All right, so concept one. This is some pine trees with sort of like a medium spacing and a lot of different types of plantings along the ground, different types of shrubs. All right, so this is concept one. Now we'll move to concept two. This is all palm trees, just so that you can get an idea of what it would look like with palm trees, but then about the same amount of shrubs on the ground. Concept three integrates both a pine tree or a series of pine trees with palm trees. And so here we've got a lot more dense spacing and a mix of different tree types. Concept four, now that you can see it with some magnolia trees as well as some crepe myrtles interspersed on different sides of the path, as well as some different purple fountain grass as a shrub. And that was it. So we've got these four concepts, and I'll give you another chance. I'll start back over at one and go through from 1, 2, 3, 4. So concept one is largely pines. Concept two is palms. Concept three is a mix of your pines and palms. Concept four is a mix of your magnolia type trees as well as a crepe myrtle. And these don't necessarily need to be the exact species of trees, but it will give you an idea of the general size and type of tree for the general look of it. And then I will show you also, let me switch over to just a plan sheet to show how we missed that pine tree that's immediately north of that kind of cleared out area. So that's this area right here. Oops. So we initially had the transition to South Lake Butler Boulevard for golf carts occurring a little bit farther to the north. and we were trying to split these two trees, but really in order to completely avoid those impacts, we really pushed it to where now the path diverges kind of right. If you can see in the aerial, this is where there's still pretty heavily wooded area right towards the edge of that. And that way, if we can get over to South Lake Butler in advance, and these are kind of shrubs right here, but that'll keep us out of the root zone of that pretty giant and nice looking tree. So we'll completely avoid that one. So that was the main change. And then we did, as I mentioned, we did several kind of minor deviations of the path where it moved a couple feet to avoid more of the root zone. That's all I've got. If we want to move back, I'll bring back up the slides with different concepts on them.
All right, one of the questions that would always come up is why hasn't this gone to tree board first? And what we wanted to do is provide just a basic look to the adjacent residents that are going to be looking out their front door and seeing this on a day-to-day basis, just to get a feel for, is this something that they would be in favor of? Is this something that they just don't want? Do they want more? And then once we get a feel for the comments and, suggestions as far as the look and feel that they want, then we would take it to tree board and they can give us some input on the actual species spacing, and we would work with our arborists as well. So one of the questions that I had was, is it a oak or is it a pine, the one that you were trying to avoid?
That one is a pine tree.
Okay, does that answer your question, Molly?
I wonder if we might be able to see it.
Yeah, it answers my question. They look like oaks, but if he says they're pines, that's fine. My preference is
you're talking about concept 1 and concept 2, or concept 1 and 3. Okay.
Yeah, they just look like oaks, but whatever you call them, I prefer the one that gives the path the most shade.
Okay.
And those ferns that you showed in the early one, they grow like weeds. They're great. They don't require anything except to control where they grow because they take off like crazy. But
Right.
they're very cheap, and they don't require a lot of maintenance except, like I said, to control where they're growing.
All right. Susan Carter put in there, I like the mixture of hardwood and some palms. I would like to see more Florida native species, specifically shrubs. So she likes this concept with concept 3. And again, we have several people that have joined us. Some joined us a little late, but we would definitely like to get your feedback either in the comment section, which is the chat box, or if you want to raise your hand via the icon, we'd be more than happy to call on you and get your input. But people may ask about timing as well. If we were to order the bridge today, you're looking at about 6 months out for us to get the bridge in. So that's why we're trying to accelerate this as much as possible, because of the delays and materials ordering, so on and so forth. And with this commitment of monies from the federal government to the Safe Routes to School program, and with our self-funding abilities, we want to make sure that we get this thing up and ready, especially before the next school year, and hopefully sooner than that. This is from Bonnie Elder. We like concept 4 because it provides more buffer between South Lake Butler Boulevard and McGuire Road. So that would be the crepe myrtles and the magnolias.
And those magnolias, to Molly's point, it could be a mixture of magnolias and oaks. They have a similar look, they're similar size trees, similar amount of shade. So they don't necessarily all need to be the specific species we called out here. But yeah, thank you for the comment. And I agree about the separation. By mixing in sort of the different size trees, then you do get a better buffer. And
we won't plant anything that's going to create a hazard in the future, meaning that the root systems will infiltrate the concrete as well. So we'll make sure we plant the right tree in the right place. Susan Carter.
Similarly, no irrigation So some of the trees will require some initial watering for them to take root for the first year, but we're not going to have an irrigation system, so everything's going to have to be drought tolerant, Florida friendly.
Susan Carter put in, I agree, most shade. Also, my concern is putting in too many pines. I know some are more susceptible to pine beetles, but a stressed tree, if there is no irrigation, is more susceptible. They like to be in clumps too. And then Carol Willard, I like concept 4 with variety of trees. I also agree with concept 4 from Kristen Rumble. I like to see diversity from Susan Carter. More shade trees and flowering trees, shrubs are preferred. Thanks, the Massey family. And for the Masseys as well, we are working to get it from north to 2nd Avenue. So that would be the next extension. And then once we hit 2nd, then we work with the church. Stephen Withers, like bridge design on planting, I would consider not limiting trees or 2 species. We'll take that back to the tree board, but as far as we meet the look and feel and shade requirements, I think we can work out some of those details. Honestly, I like concept 3 or 4, but I don't like the purple grasses so much. And that's from Liz Beavers. All right. So right now it's looking like concept 3 and 4. Most people agree to that. Patrick?
Yeah, I was just curious. You had mentioned that the part of this phase is going to go all the way to Park Avenue. And we're talking about the area right next to South Lake Butler Boulevard. What's going to happen with the wooded area behind the homes that are on Wassian Drive?
Nothing.
It's going to stay the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. You know, whatever's heavily vegetated over there, we're just gonna make sure that it remains. It provides a nice shaded area and overhangs the current trail system. So we'll just be widening the sidewalk over in that area.
Robert and Mike, can you scroll back through the concept photos real quick?
Yep. Start at 1. I'll just give it about 5 seconds per.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
This will be going to town council after it goes to the tree board for part of the 90% plans. We just needed an idea of, you know, what the adjacent property owners were kind of looking at as far as what type of vegetation they want to see.
Yeah, I know they're interested in keeping as much screening as possible.
Anybody else as far as questions, comments, concerns? Susan?
So I agree with what everybody said. I would, again, stress Florida natives on, especially in the shrubbery. Maybe look at Dahoon hollies, maybe look at something like Simpson stoppers. Viburnum, I'm concerned will end up with dead patches with them not being necessarily native. I do like the concept of mixing the trees. And as I said, I'm concerned about coming in too hard with pines because the stressed pine is a weak pine. But I like the idea, but they kind of need to be more in clumps if they're going to do well together. And again, hardwoods and shade. So thank you.
What do we have left over from the tree giveaway? That's what I want.
Nothing. I have 2 cypress. I have 4 cypress.
All right, never
2
mind.
blonde and 2 bald.
Never mind. Let's start over.
I know a person you could donate those to.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is a quiet meeting. It means I think we're doing an okay job. And I think Mike did a fantastic job as far as
Yeah, that's great.
showing the residents what they would be looking at. you know, and as far as you have the pathway, and you also have the retention area, which is not going to be anything that's going to be, you know, it's not a ditch or anything like that. We'll try to dress it up as much as possible. And then with the landscaping, it's going to be more of a linear park type of feel to it than an actual trail system, I believe. Okay.
Hey, Robert,
Yes,
does
ma'am.
the path take the place of the existing path, or are there going to be two paths?
It'll take well, it depends on where you're going. If it's north of the
Oh, I'm
Maple
sorry.
Boulevard, then
I meant the
it's
cart path.
the car path is going to remain on the roadway. Yeah, because the trail system is what, 10 to 12 foot wide.
Mhm.
And what you'll do is, since it's a paved roadway on Lake Boulevard Boulevard, and also it's going to be paved on Old Dirt Main from the canal all the way to 2nd Avenue, you might as well keep those golf carts off of the trail. So the only way they would get on the trail is to cross that bridge. So once you get on Lake Boulevard Boulevard, then you cross the bridge and you get back onto Old Dirt Main. And then pedestrian traffic goes back onto its areas. So there'd be bollards up to where you wouldn't have any motorized vehicles on the trail, because we use internal road systems for the golf carts.
So when you're going over the bridge, is it that current pedestrian path staying, or is that going?
That's going.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
And we're raising the height up of the pedestrian crossing to match the existing road bridge. So at least some boaters will have some clearance.
Great, good ideas. Thanks.
Should we make it a little higher just in case the road bridge ever gets replaced?
I'll ask Mike that, but I think the higher you go, the wider the span has to be.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mike, is that true?
Yeah, and it does increase the cost, because not only the span, but leading up to it, the substructure of the bridge also becomes more expensive.
Yeah. Massey's had a question as far as how wide is the path going to be? I know on the bridge is 14 foot. And again, for the multimodal path, it'll be between 10 and 12, depending upon if we need to mitigate any tree impacts. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, a lot of it is 12 feet. There's some portions that are 10 feet. And then the bridge itself, well, I'm sorry. The bridge is 14. Immediately adjacent to the bridge is 12. And then once the golf carts are off, then you get down to 10 feet. And the 10-foot width was selected, one, to make it easier to avoid trees, but also to have it be, I guess, less desirable for people who are trying to ride their bikes at super high speeds, to make it more friendly to people who want to walk their dogs, rollerblade, or just go at slower speeds.
All right. All valuable input. So any other questions, concerns? When you say multimodal, what are you expecting? It's joggers, people on bikes, you know, strollers. For the overall multimodal plan, that does include golf carts, but we try to keep them off of the pedestrian pathways as much as possible. So that's why we use the side streets. The only area where it's going to be 100% multimodal, again, is going to be the pedestrian bridge, and the area from, I believe, Lake Street east to the Grove, where we would make sure that it interconnects with the commercial district over there. So you'd have a golf cart crossing at Lake Street, go to the south of 6th Avenue, and then we would widen that pathway all the way to the Grove area.
Let's get that map pulled up.
Yeah. In the area south of 6th Avenue, we're still working with property owners on property swaps. That'll be mostly, you know, pedestrian, and the multimodal aspect would still stay on that dirt man roadway. So we would use that 40 feet for sidewalk, well, the 10-foot wide pedestrian pathway, same type of landscaping plan, and stormwater improvements. And possibility of a utility corridor in the future, meaning that if we ever get water or wastewater not for lift stations or anything like that, but for the lines.
Do we have any pictures of the bridge?
Yeah.
Did you guys already cover that? I jumped in here a little late.
Yeah, we don't have new ones. So it'd be this type of bridge, and the pictures shown are with that sort of like purposefully rusted
Yeah.
look. But we selected black.
So is
Black
it
paint.
too late? Is it too late to change that? I've been getting some negative feedback from some of the residents about that looking too industrial. Like, they expect to see coal spilled all over the place. And would prefer some of them would prefer a more natural, rustic bronze-like finish. But instead of gloss black, I know we did select that as a council, but at what point is the bridge even been constructed yet?
Yeah, I thought you were talking about changing the bridge, and I was starting to freak out a little bit.
No,
I
not the
think
bridge
but
itself.
the
The color,
paint.
not the bridge itself. It's beautiful the way
I'll
it is.
check, and we could probably still talk about the paint. I'll figure out when that decision needs to be made. Maybe it's something that could be addressed when we come to town council for the 90% design approval.
Can we do a straw poll here from everybody and have them put in the chat, see what they think about the color wise? Because I know this is more participation than we had during the actual council meeting when we decided that. So
Yes, if everybody can select their hand raise icon, and those in favor of the bronze look, go ahead and raise your icon. And this is versus the black
Gloss
finish, kind of like what you see on the town signage. So you have 1, 2, I would say 3, 6. I got 7 out of 22 participants, excluding maybe 4 for staff. So about 50-50.
okay.
And again, we can take this back to town council once we get to 90%. Dorothy, you don't count, I'm sorry.
I know the gloss black is hotter. It'll keep the kids off the top of the thing.
Yeah.
It's hot on bare feet, but
Don't worry, Dorothy, I wanted a vote too.
oh,
All right.
It's okay.
Another one for the people who live on the end of South Lake Butler Boulevard, where there's a ditch usually full of water between the streets and the new path. How will this be able to access the path or bridge without wading through water? You'll be able to access the bridge pretty much at the exit point with a golf cart. So you don't have to drive over any of the landscaped areas, and the area that you would access it would be Lake Butler Boulevard and Main Street. So where that crossing is right now, you would enter, through bikes or strollers. But as far as golf cart, you'd go down South Lake Butler Boulevard, cross the bridge and get onto Old Dirt Main. And with the addition of connecting stormwater systems throughout this whole entire project, we're hoping that the water will percolate quicker and not pretty much, have that bog that you have out there for several days after a couple of rainstorms. South of 6, we still need a turnaround at Chase. Do you not think this will ever go down Chase Pit? Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, with West Orange County, we're working with several different jurisdictions. Our intent is to eventually have some sort of connection that would connect this to Chase and go all the way to 535. But I know that's a long time in the future. And that's why we're mostly just going to end it over at 12th and Chase. But if that connection ever does become available, then we'll take that into consideration. That's just a dangerous curve, and it's pretty constrained on right away there. Could you please show the timeline again?
This is more of a process than it was a specific timeline. schedule.
Yeah, again, we're trying to get everything completed by the fall, if not sooner than that. And construction, probably in the winter / spring. You know, with everything, it's taking longer for orders, it's taking longer for construction, but the sooner that we can get this thing designed and out the door, the better, because we do have the funds to pay for this internally. All right, anybody else? I know I have a lot of hands raised, but I think that's because we did the poll. So if you could lower your hands and then answer any other questions, if you could have the hands up. Liz Beavers, do you have a question, or is that still from the poll? All right, Carol Willard. Is that still from the poll, or do you have a question? Hand down. All right, well, I'll thank everybody for their comments, suggestions, and participating tonight. We have recorded this, so we'll make sure that we put it on our YouTube channel and we post it. So if you know any friends, family members, or neighbors that were unable to attend tonight, please direct them to our channel. You can catch this video as well as pretty much all the town council meetings and also the workshops that we do. So we want to make sure that everybody has more information. It's very transparent, and that we get everybody's public input before we take these things to town council. So again, thank you all for your help, and any final comments from any council members or from Tanya or Mike?
Thank you, everyone, for participating and for all your hard work on this, guys. It looks great. Looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting to bring our two halves of our town together safely.
Absolutely. So nobody's looking in both directions before they cross over the right of way, jump on that road bridge, and get back onto it.
I see people doing that all the time. It's terrifying to watch.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you all, and we'll make sure that we keep everybody notified on when this does go to town council, and we will be putting this on a tree board agenda when we can. So again, thank you all, and have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.